Hey everyone, Rowan here. Today we're going to be starting a little series as a playlist, which I've been really wanting to do for quite a while. We're going to be taking a look at news, current affairs, and current happenings in the world, but specifically through the lens of spiral dynamics and developmental psychology. So it's going to be sort of like seeing what's going on in social media, seeing what's going on in the news, and seeing what's going on in our cultural comedy, in our cultural media, and seeing if we can identify those inherent value stages that are defined by spiral dynamics, i.e. blue, orange, green, and above, or through other models such as Suzanne Cook-Greuter's, conformist, individualist, pluralist. There are many different developmental psychology models which roughly align to the same 10 or so stages of consciousness, which are also inherent value systems. That is, ways of looking at the world, certain opinions that naturally emerge from those values, and certain clashes that always happen between different value systems. So this is a beautiful way to use sort of academic sounding developmental psychology in a highly, highly practical way. One major issue that we have in our society right now is we have a fire hose of information through all access to instant information, instant media, instant news, whether that's through social media, X, Twitter, YouTube, or just the TV news in general. I mean, there's like 500 channels anyway. Most people are now getting the news through social media. Less and less people are using those mainstream media outlets, BBC, CBC, CNN. Lots more are going on to platforms like X, or even alternative news sites like Ground News, which actually shows you left, center, and right. My point being here is that we can use spiral dynamics and developmental psychology, those stages of consciousness which turn up in different developmental psychology models, to instantly have a filter on this fire hose of information. So instead of just being bombarded with constant different opinions, we have a certain sense, we can instantly scan the information, and we instantly see what worldview or what value stage is this message coming from. We can see the center of gravity. Is it a center of gravity of the red value stage, the blue value stage, the orange value stage, the green pluralist value stage? And I do use certain terms interchangeably. If I'm talking about blue and orange, that's specifically the spiral dynamics model. If I'm talking about the individualist or the modern achiever, that's more the Suzanne Cook-Greuter's specific phrasing and wording for this stage. I know Ken Wilber will call it orange modern. You can also see my free guide to the developmental stages of consciousness to sort of get a extra sense of where I'm coming at here. So this is going to be actually very crucial, and this is a powerful tool and a very powerful practical way to use developmental psychology in your life, because you're going to be a lot less confused and a lot less lost when it comes to having these bombardments of different opinions on social media and not knowing what to think of it. You're getting bombarded with hyper convincing arguments from either way. And if you're not careful, social media in this way can shape your worldview and mold your worldview. The algorithms are going to reinforce certain worldviews onto you. This is why we have young men getting radicalized into further and further far-right movements. We have usual, center-left advocates getting radicalized further and further into an almost communistic ideology. These social media algorithms, their intention is to provide information as soon as possible, but they're also inherently profit-driven. So the algorithms are going to make more and more extreme, more and more sticky information and content from various people. Now, if you don't have a lens of knowing which value system this comes from, you are highly at risk of making decisions based on these algorithmically charged worldviews, which could get you into a lot of issues, into a lot of suffering. Whereas instead of just outright accepting or rejecting social media, we now know it's an inherent part of our life. We need to strike that middle balance of being able to use it to stay informed, but not get radicalized either way through different value systems. And with being aware of the spiral dynamics, being aware of the developmental psychology behind each stage of consciousness, we know exactly what worldview and what stage of consciousness each message is coming out of. I've just opened up Twitter. I don't know, I think it's because I'm probably a male in a certain demographic that it seems to be pushing slightly further right-wing things. So this guy, Mark Slapinski, independent journalist focusing on federal politics based in Canada, he says, "Welcome to Toronto. Your evening commute will likely be delayed due to the presence of praying Muslims on major streets. Do you like our new country?" So this is a very sort of inflammatory, aggressive stance. But where this is coming from is clearly you can instantly identify this as stage blue. This is in spiral dynamic stage blue. In Suzanne Cook Greuter's developmental psychology model, it's called the conformist. Now, at this stage, very much values order, rules and regulations, laws, sacrificing yourself for a collective good. Where this stage comes is, Christians versus Muslims. We have it's us versus them. It's our worldview is the only right worldview. Any other worldviews are inherently bad. It's about order, about usually ethnocentrism. Whether they say it or not, there is a sort of inherent ethnocentrism when the center of gravity is at this stage. I'm not saying that this person doesn't have elements and values of the orange capitalistic stage or even the green pluralistic stage. But we use the phrase center of gravity because no one is ever at one stage, right? That just doesn't really exist. But people are a blend of the major value systems. But when the center of gravity is further towards blue, we're more likely to be ethnocentric. We're more likely to have an us versus them mindset. We are more likely to really enjoy law and order, go to school, get a job, go to church on Sunday. So this value system does have an issue when it comes to multicultural cities such as Toronto, Canada. This is a highly multicultural city in Canada. And obviously not only Muslims, but there's basically everyone from everywhere on earth under every religion in a multicultural city like Toronto, London, Abu Dhabi, New York. We now live in a multicultural, multipolar society. But the stage blue value system does not like this at all because it's very much an us versus them mindset. I'm actually pulling up some information here from Spiral Dynamics Integral, which is based out of Netherlands. Now, this isn't the only official information that you can get. You can get it from a book. You can teach yourself spiral dynamics, but this is a fairly official source. So remember these core values: authoritarianism, holy and meaningful, the order, we are saved. This stemmed from the medieval times, whether it's the Christians, crusading, or whether it's Islamic armies taking out infidels. The world is well organized, purposeful, and subjected to holy divine laws, which will punish evil and will reward the correct way of living. Now, notice the funny thing with the stage blue value system, it could come from Christianity. We go to church, the world is organized according to God's plan and is subjected to God's holy divine laws, which are literally said and literally written down into this textbook called the Bible, and it will be punishing evil sins and will reward the correct way of living. But the exact same value system comes from, let's say, traditionalist Islam. The world is organized according to Allah's plan, purposeful and subject to holy divine laws as written in the Quran, which will punish the infidels and will reward the Islamic way of living. But this, again, it's not just Christianity versus Islam. It's the Jews would have this mindset, Judaism, this is the correct way. Judaism is the correct way. But notice how, Christians, Jews, and Islam, they actually have a lot more in common than they think they do because they all operate from the same value system. I'm sacrificing myself to the correct way for a deferred reward in the afterlife. Discovering meaning and purpose in life. It's very much why Jordan Peterson is on the up these days. You gotta have meaning and order and purpose and go to church and clean your room. And that is a message that younger people, especially who've grown up in cities at the orange modern stage, have just simply not had. And they're actually rediscovering this value system. Remember the highlights of this value stage here: feudal Middle Ages, rise of the cities and forming of nations and countries. Nations and countries wouldn't exist if this value system wasn't in operation. But the lowlights, so to say, the Crusades, Christianity versus Islam, Islam versus Christianity, Judaism versus Islam, all of those Abrahamic religions were fighting each other despite the fact that they were operating at the same values, which is hilarious. Absolutism, well, there is only one way to live in life, and that is Christianity. There is only one way to live in life, and that is Islam. There is only one way to live in life, and that is Judaism. Look here, we see it forming in the communities of Saudi Arabia, Iran, in the Indian caste system, certain class orders, Orthodox Israel, Puritan America, the newborn Christians, and religious sects. They all carry the same value system, which is actually hilarious. And we even find it in this list of, stage blue value system sayings. Do not do unto others what you would not have them do unto you. Very biblical kind of Bible quotes, or quotes from, the Quran or the Torah or whatever Abrahamic religion you're at. So what we have here is 3 sentences and a video, but we already know what value system this is operating at. I am not accusing this guy of being quote unquote Islamophobic. I am just recognizing that his value system says there's too many different cultures here and they all have different ways of doing things. And they don't look like me. They don't have the same practices as me, even though in reality, there's more similarities with the value systems than there is differences. But this guy is clearly harvesting his audience. Your evening commute will be delayed because of these people praying, as if that happens, every single day, as if that's some sort of realistic thing that actually happens. He knows that doesn't actually happen. And the use of, do you like our new country? Well, notice that there was, back in my day, decades ago, our country was like this. It had certain solid rules, certain solid foundations. And now we're in a world which is much more pluralistic, where there's a lot more chaos, a lot more instability. And the blue value system does not like instability or chaos or pluralism. So it rejects it. It goes against it. And any emergent signs of pluralism, different cultures, different communities, it can't really integrate them into it, despite the fact that Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Catholicism generally all operate at the same value system. If they actually were aware of spiral dynamics, they'd actually recognize just how much they have in common with these other Abrahamic religions. Look at this, they're laughing at Canadians and their culture. When do Western countries wake up and realize they're being invaded? When your grandkids have to follow Sharia law. This is, we have our solid culture here, which is one particular way of living. And we're getting invaded by a different way of living. This guy makes a good comment here. Just curious, if this were a Christian mass or a Jewish ritual, would Mark be outraged too? Or does his outrage only activate selectively? As we've just been saying, Stage Blue is very similar between Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. They all have traditional rituals, traditional praying structures, traditional religious rituals, and certain acts. They all go to a certain place on a certain day. They all observe holy days. They all believe that their one holy book is literal. Many of the things that happened in that book are literal, and we all take it seriously. And all of our interpretations are correct, and they're the only correct interpretations. They're all about tradition, discipline. Women have a certain place in the family. Men have a certain place in the family. Children have a certain role to fulfill. Structure, very structured, very orderly, and ethnocentric at the same time. These are the parts of Stage Blue where Christianity, Judaism, and Islam are actually very well linked. They operate at the same value system. Yeah, so here on Ground News, we obviously recently had the choosing of the new Pope, the new head of the Catholic Church. And, every time this happens, we're obviously very much reminded of just how much a large percentage of the world population does operate at the blue value system. I'm saying that the blue value system is actually incredibly similar, even if you're Catholic, Muslim, Jew, any of these Abrahamic traditional religions operate at very much the same levels of values, same level of consciousness, because this is a clear hierarchy. You have your priests down below. You become a cardinal, then you become the Pope. There's a clear hierarchy of ascending authority. It's highly structured. A lower cardinal should not speak badly of a higher cardinal. No one should speak. It's very traditionalist. There's very rigid rules, very rigid do's and don'ts, obviously, in the Catholic Church, especially in the Vatican. And look at this, the inaugural celebrations highlighted Leo's Augustinian missionary background and suggested his papacy would emphasize traditional doctrine. He's going back to traditional doctrine. I mean, traditional doctrine is a classic Stage Blue, like doing things by the book. We need to go back to our literal book in which Moses literally parted the Red Sea, in which people literally ascended to heaven, in which a piece of bread literally causes salvation when you take it and eat it at a church. This guy is saying there's too much pluralism in the world. We need to return back to traditional doctrine. And the phrase traditional doctrine could not only apply from Catholicism, it could apply to Protestantism, any other form of Christianity. You could have a leader of a Jewish church emphasizing traditional doctrine. You could have a leader of an Islamic leader emphasizing traditional doctrine. Because remember, it's all about the discipline, duty, feelings of honor or guilt, we versus them, meaning, order, routine, security, absolute, literal, and definite. So that's a real clue. Absolute, we have this book. We absolutely believe in it. There is no other room for any other books. It's literally parted the Red Sea. Jesus literally, stepped out of a cave on the third day. He literally turned water into wine. Eating that piece of bread in church literally grants you salvation. It's indefinite. There's obviously no room. It's all traditional. Well, this is the way it happened. And these are the same values that existed in the Middle Ages. I'm not judging it. It's just that the value systems are a part of human developmental psychology. So if our Pope here is going back to traditional doctrine, well, he's going to be harder, stricter, probably more polarizing, more fixed and inflexible, probably more judging and cold, maybe finding faults with the more pluralistic aspects of the modern day church. Sticking to the rules because those are the rules. There's also been a really fascinating event in the UK. So recently there was these local elections. It's not the full elections, but it's sort of you choose your representatives in the local councils. And essentially Labour, who only just got in last year in a full-on national election, they were essentially the ruling party. It's first past the post. Anyways, this sort of centre-left party was completely wiped out in the local elections in favor of a party called Reform UK, which is often labeled as a right-wing party, but it's more a protest to vote party. So as a result of this absolutely decimating result for the Labour Party, the leader of the Labour Party, the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, has completely, utterly changed his tone on key issues such as immigration, which is what essentially the rise of Nigel Farage and Reform UK, and the populations who had genuine issues with mass migration had voted for. This wave of Reform UK candidates happening in the last month or two is clearly a cry from the people to get these issues related to migration sorted out. As a result, Keir Starmer has pulled a complete 180 on his narrative when it comes to immigration, because he knows his population. He knows his popularity is shrinking. He knows that Reform UK are looking to be more popular than the Labour Party, despite the Labour Party being in power. So check this out. Keir Starmer, usually, he's a well-educated man. He's part of the London elite. He's a politician. His general worldview is probably in the orange modern or green pluralistic stage. Check out his tone here. If you work here illegally or employ people who do, we're coming for you. Illegal working rates are up 40%, and we won't stop there. This kind of aggressive rhetoric was completely unheard of, even just a few months ago from Keir Starmer. He's realized what's happened at the local election, and he's done a complete 180 on his narrative. Look, more recently, strengthen our borders, cut bills, boost jobs. In the last 2 weeks, I've secured trade deals with India and the US that deliver for British people, British businesses, and British jobs. So it's all about British this. It's about strengthening the borders now. It's the same values of Stage Blue. I'm not saying that Stage Blue is associated with the working class, but that working class usually have more Stage Blue values. It's traditional conservative values, but actually Stage Blue values is a better lens for it. So strengthen the borders. If you don't have borders, you don't have a nation. Clear boundaries. We are English. You are not English. We are British. You are not British. We are us. You are them. It's very much Stage Blue. We have our values. You have yours, and you should leave us alone. There is no room for a person at the center of gravity to accommodate both, or see the key differences or key similarities, or see the benefits of having different people of different faiths. Don't accuse me of being some sort of left liberal. Oh, this guy's clearly a leftist because he's about to call me a racist. He's about to call Keir Starmer a racist for questioning borders and immigration. The whole point of spiral dynamics and developmental psychology is to go beyond that. You probably think I'm a stage green, right? You probably think I'm stage green, the classic left liberal, pink hair. There is no such thing as illegal migrant. Open the borders, and anyone who questions the limits of immigration, or anyone who has this kind of rhetoric, instantly a racist. I am not that. I am trying to get you to see the whole spiral of different value systems. So you can't pigeonhole me into being left wing or right wing right now. Just listen and see how the different value systems emerge in these different messages. How about this one from Keir Starmer? If you're one of the smugglers putting people in small boats across the channel, we're coming after you. Agree or disagree with this. Don't pigeonhole me here and say I'm disagreeing with this certain aspect of migration policy, or I'm agreeing with this certain aspect of migration policy. I'm just saying, notice the change in narrative and the value system that is coming from. This is all about border security, national identity, restoring the national British identity. Whether these votes are an actual legitimate issue or not, it's not actually the point. The point is the British working class ethnocentric cultural identity. This is the values. These are the things that the Stage Blue values. Cultural theme, devotion and worship of God and expressions of patriotism. This value brought us states, churches, armies, administration of justice, trades and crafts, and class society. This is the same value system that's saying that our ethnocentric British identity is being eroded. The working class are being ignored. And, that's neither good nor bad, but there's a clear, wave of this sentiment across the country. And you know what? I'm willing to bet that the leaders in politics, the leaders here, don't even know about the spiral dynamics model. Keir Starmer probably isn't even aware that he has to actually recognize and value and become aware of the Stage Blue value system, as well as the Stage Orange and Stage Green, and be able to integrate the perspectives of all of them into a systemic solution. But really, these people who are running Parliament and running Westminster, running these social media accounts, are tracking what's popular in the polls and going from one narrative to the next and trying to chase everyone at the same time, without realizing that all of the blue, orange, green, and yellow value systems probably all exist in modern Britain at the same time. So look, and remember, values and norms, discipline, duty, regularity, we versus they, meaning, order, security, self-control, absolute, literal, definite, morality, hierarchy, obedience, and willing to sacrifice to a greater core, control, structures of authorities. And what Starmer is saying, we're going to tighten up, we're going to take back control of our borders, national identity, restoring the ethnocentric identity of the British. I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. Mark my words. Authority, trust in me that I am the top of the hierarchy here, and I will take control of the borders. I will restore the ethnocentric identity. I will maintain control of the us versus the them and the economic situations and cultural issues that come as a result of uncontrolled mass migration. Come straight out of the spiral dynamics blue, phrases and sayings. Promise is a promise, literally a Stage Blue saying. Promises made, promises delivered. I'm making the promise, I'm keeping the promise. Keep me accountable in this structure of authority and hierarchy, and I will deliver for my little feudal kingdom. So this has been a complete narrative change by Starmer, all in the wake of these local elections in which Reform UK, this party led by Nigel Farage, has absolutely dominated them. Traditional Conservatives and traditional Labour have just been destroyed at these local elections. And this guy is scrambling to regain popularity. And he's beginning to use Stage Blue value stories and phrases in order to try and resonate with that particular section of the country and that particular value system in the country. The official Prime Minister's Twitter account, this is a message to the fly tippers blighting our towns and villages. You can almost hear this as a local ethnocentric villager in the village. For too long, your actions have gone unpunished. We need rights and wrongs. Stop littering. That ends now. We'll use drones and new tech to identify your vehicle. Then we'll crush it. It's like he's really trying to be this tough guy figure now that the elections have changed and the narrative in the culture has changed. He's used drones and new tech to identify your vehicle, and then we'll crush it. A little bit dystopian, but So it looks like we also have, when we're exploring Twitter, some sort of maybe a slight COVID surge happening in Asia, unfolding in Hong Kong. They've issued a public health alert. Singapore's Ministry of Health have reported it. And, COVID and the pandemic was a very revealing event for the different value systems. We had all sorts of opinions, shouted at us for a good 2 to 3 years, and it all took a toll on us. But imagine if you had a tool like Spiral Dynamics in which you could instantly filter and understand the perspective of each piece of information instead of getting bombarded with a million different perspectives and kind of having to churn through it. You could see at what value system, what value stage the message was coming through. Remember stage green, the kind of leading edge, the pluralistic, the postmodern value system was very much aware of international systems and international health policies and how people around the world acting could actually prevent the suffering or increase the suffering of the pandemic. It was very much stage green who was for, lockdowns, masks, and following the science. That stage orange phrase as well, following the science. The orange modern stage is very much, it doesn't matter what you think or you think, we'll follow what the science says. There was that phrase, the science is settled. So the stage orange value system was very much more likely to go along with conventional sciences. But the stage green, which was generally care-centric, wanted to help people, it would be the type who's going to help you older folks, delivering food, being a good neighbor, and generally called for, whatever was necessary for the collective community to suffer less from the pandemic. That was very much stage green value. Stage blue was more, well, why should we lock down our country when I want to work? Why should a unelected transnational body decide what our government should do? Why should the same principles and actions and procedures apply to different nation states when we are an individual nation state with particular ways of doing things? We should be able to make our own choice on this. And with the Russia-Ukraine story, it's very interesting, the dynamics between Trump and Putin, because actually there's another value system, stage red, which is just below the blue value system. Red is all about power, control, domination, subservience, being quite brutal to remain in power. It's very much about maintaining your power at all costs, whether through corruption or violence. It's about amassing self-power regardless of the consequences for the collective. And this speaks of, Putin's tactics in, corruption and, having certain ways to deal with people who might disagree with him. And I actually think that there's a section of Donald Trump which resonates a lot with Putin's style. Trump, in that stage red value system in him, which wants to control and dominate and self-promote at all time and maintain power and maintain the brand of Donald Trump. He's always constantly reinforcing his own brand name, reinforcing his own power. Very much respects that aspect of the value system in Putin, who's, known to have very extreme methods of remaining in power, of violence or corruption, being a strong man. The red value stage is all about being a strong man. Putin, or look at Trump, do any of these words ring a bell? Egocentric, exploitative, impulsive, power, I determine. The world is a jungle. Didn't Trump recently have a tweet saying, I run the US and I run the world, something like that. It's very much, I determine what goes on in this world. I am the power source. The world is a jungle, so it's survival of the fittest. Trump saying, well, the world is an angry place.
There's plenty of anger right now. How can you have more? The world is an angry place.
And I have to control it all. It's survival of the fittest. I'm the most powerful, and I'm going to be increasing my power by the day to take control of this world. I am taking charge without taking others into account. Immediate gratification of impulses. He's known to have his, sexual scandals and perhaps some slightly different, criminal aspects. He did release that meme coin 3 days before the presidency. It was a great way for him to amass more wealth and power, even if it felt slightly illegal, although technically not illegal, apparently. The life philosophy of I only trust myself and what I want it now. So the highlights of that red value stage are, extracting metal from ore, heroic crusades, rise of commerce and resistance heroes. But the lowlights is wars, revolutions, dictatorships, criminality, violence, terrorism. See if we can see any of Trump or Putin in this. Impulses and displays of power. I orientation, dominance, power, and oppression. Strives for self-preservation and respect. You can't get away with disrespect in Putin. that has literally life-threatening consequences. If you're a member of the Russian government in any form, you simply do not disrespect or talk out about Putin. In very much the same way, it's same with Donald Trump. If you talk out about him within your inner circle, you're going to be punished for that. You must respect him. He's striving for self-preservation, free from guilt or shame, doesn't really have a sense of guilt or shame, fast and impulsive, guts and glory, loyal to those who are considered friends. Well, these Saudis are my friends, so of course I'm going to accept their giant jet. It's not corruption, they're my friends, and it's a gift, and it'll enhance my wealth and power. Enforcement by way of sanctions sounds pretty familiar. On a mission. And if you're not with us, you're against us. Strives with an open visor and has one goal: to manifest whatever it wants. And that's not the hippie version of manifestation. That's, I need to just get and create in the world what I need through any means necessary. Wants to confront, demand respect, and wants to be respected through actions.
That way. You're just a lightweight. Don't talk to me that way. I'm the president of the United States. Don't ever talk to the president that way.
Take action, immediate gratification, show respect, give power, unconditional support from the in-group. Now, I'm not saying, don't get me wrong here and say that I'm just going to be bashing Trump like a leftist liberal. That's not the paradigm that we're in anymore. Take a look at the different spiral dynamic stages and see that there are a mix of values of worldviews in every single individual. And once you get closer to yellow, you'll be able to see all the different value systems in action around the world. And that will actually help you make sense of the world and, make sense of yourself. So don't label me as a right winger or a left winger. Just because your mind will instantly say, well, you're criticizing Trump, therefore you're a left liberal communist, or, oh, you're criticizing immigration, therefore you're a racist Nazi. The time for that is well and truly over. We know it doesn't work. How does that work? It doesn't work. We have this worldview, this binary worldview now for years, and it's just completely hasn't worked. We need a more nuanced perspective through actual developmental psychology. Why wouldn't we use the insights of developmental psychology to understand our culture at large? It's very easy. Once you learn this model, it's quite easy. So remember that healthy manifestation of the red value system. It's assertive, it's fast, it shows courage, it acts immediately on what needs to be done in the here and now and in a respectful way, sets clear boundaries and indicates urgencies and expresses one's own opinion. But the unhealthy manifestations of the red value system is oversimplification, impatience, being harsh, being a blabbermouth, being too honest, insistent, impulsive, unreasonable, having one's own needs met or wants to be right at all costs. Dog-eat-dog world, only thinks of oneself. Quote-unquote left liberals, which have actually been misidentified as the stage green value system, well, green experiences red as a dictator. That's why you'll have people saying that Donald Trump is literally a dictator, literally Hitler. Well, he's not literally a dictator and he's not literally Hitler. Traits in him which show similar values as identified by spiral dynamics. On the other hand, Putin literally is a dictator. The quote-unquote left liberals, who are actually the stage green value system, do not focus on the fact that Putin is a much more violent dictator than Donald Trump is. Anyway, guys, this was just a little kind of brief overview of what's happening in the news, both on media and on social media. I just wanted to kind of do this as a regular series to see what spiral dynamic stages, what developmental values are, I just wanted to do this as a sort of reference for how spiral dynamics and developmental psychology and the various values and worldviews that are reflected through these systems come out in the real world. And this will actually help you guys to distinguish different information and be able to not get bogged down with the fire hose of information in this world and be able to clearly distinguish very quickly what value stage, what worldview this information is coming from. So this is going to be a regular series. If you like this sort of thing, if you want to have like a live update of kind of spiral dynamics in the current news and current media, we can distinguish and discuss the different stages, values, then like and subscribe this content, and I'll probably make a playlist of this. Okay, remember to follow me on X and all the rest of that jazz. Okay, thanks, bye.